is up? Another Tuesday, another episode of The Void. What is happening? Hopefully this, I have a bad feeling that my audio mixer isn't working the way it's supposed to. Let's see. Probably not. Hopefully. Okay, it seems like it's working alright. We've got a little bit of background Seprock beats again. Seprock beats this time around. Side A and B by Seprock. It's a double album by Sunken City Records. I think I've got the link in the description. Oh, hold on. I don't even think I have the normal Boyd. Oh my gosh, I can't believe. Oh well. Alright, let's see. I haven't even. Things have been all crazy. Hope everyone is doing amazing. Let me get this camera set up. Everything is sort of ski-wampus right now in my world. Hold on. The laptop is not functioning right. You know, and it's like, I've been restoring classic cars lately. Stand by. See, you guys are missing out on this. You guys are gonna have to imagine. I've got this laptop in the shop, and it doesn't really want to sit on the workbench. Okay. And if I don't have it plugged in, it will die. Post haste. Not right away, but I mean, it'll die. Here we go. All right. Man, I swear, I don't know how to make myself less glaring or whatever. I got this glare on me, it seems like. But for those of you that are listening to the someday in the future audio only episode, you won't have to worry about it. All right, so yes, again, welcome. Actually, we have for the live show tonight. We've got two people, and I hate even thinking about it really as a show. It's a meeting for the meeting tonight. So we hash through the bullshit that is laid upon us by the world together, right? That's the idea behind this thing. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I think there's a mosquito in the shop studio. In the background, you may notice 1963 Cabriolet Mercedes. Really cool car. Working on some things on it right now. And hopefully it'll be putting around town shortly. But yes, so that's the neat thing about the shop studio. You never know what I've got in the background. You never know what I'm working on. But yes, I was saying that in working on restoring cars, just realizing when things get sort of let go and not used, and they get neglected. I don't remember, what was it that sort of sparked my thought in that? I don't know, maybe it'll come back to me. Today, the shop studio does not have nearly the gaseous fumes that we had last episode. So again, that's another neat thing about the shop studios. You never know if they will have adverse effects due to chemical poisoning, etc., to its host. So that's cool. Okay, so the meeting to where we go through bullshit. I sort of last minute picked the title "Blow the Whistle" because I had just watched a video that a friend of mine had shared about a major money laundering scheme where basically Russian dignitaries, I think it is, mainly Russian, were laundering dollars. Sorry, I'm killing mosquitoes that are biting me. They're laundering money through this bank in Estonia, branch of Danske Bank, and major operation. And it's one guy sort of just was like, hey, this doesn't make sense. He did some research. It turns out it's like, if you ever watched the movie Boiler Room with a young Vin Diesel and also a young Ben Affleck in that movie. If you've seen that show, that movie, they actually create false or create fake securities, fake companies to sell shares in, and they'll do what's called a pump and dump. Excuse me. Excuse me. They'll do a pump and dump scheme. So they'll have their friends put in limit orders, or basically put in orders saying, "I'll buy when it's a certain price," or "I'll sell when it's a certain price," or yeah, basically they just put they buy a bunch of shares, and then they start they put in these they and basically by them buying the shares and fulfilling each other's orders, they drive the price of the stock up. And then in the show anyway, they hire these people that have aspirations for basically financial shenanigans. Again, this is all fake stuff. This is not real companies that they're selling securities. These are just nothing. They just file for corporate status and then sell the shares out, right? So they sell it for some number. Let's say they sell it for $5 a share. I mean, it's worthless, but they sell it for $5 a share. There's thousands and thousands of shares, so they get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, $1 million or something. They sell all these shares out, right? And as they're selling off these shares, they and they're making up all these stories about the stock and how it's this or that, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It's the next best thing. Blah blah blah. This is the opportunity, and then people buy it. It jumps up in value. Then all of the owners that already had bought the shares dump their stock out, and when that happens, basically the people that end up buying the shares, their shares end up worthless, right? So as they sell off their shares to these investors, and people realize there's nothing to the back end, or this is an illegitimate company, then of course the people that bought the shares are out of the money. And then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's investing. That's just what happens. It's the market. Who knows? I don't know. Blah blah. Businesses fail all the time. I don't know what you want me to do. It was a dream. I took a gamble too. I lost money too. Yeah. And they'll tell whatever story they have to, and then move on. If they even tell a story, they just disconnect their phone number. And so anyway, that was what was going on in Boiler Room. But it was sort of similar in some ways. So basically, there's a shell company made that's owned by another shell company. They maybe, I mean, it's fake addresses, fake, all sorts of stuff. Everything's fake. And basically, what they're doing is they're taking Russian rubles and they are washing them. So they could be illegitimate means that they were gathered through bribes, through selling stuff, that illicit items, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And in the span of doing that, excuse me. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so they got the rubles from some source, probably illicit, right? Likely illicit means, because this is a fake company. So since it's fake, like chances are any money from it is not real, right? Supposedly dormant companies with $20 million a day worth of transactions, right? I mean, that's how much we're talking about. One particular client in one branch, let alone the majority of the branch. I mean, this was billions of dollars, and basically they're taking these rubles, they're buying U.S. dollars from the Treasury or wherever they're. Eventually, I mean, everything goes back to the Treasury, or to the mint has to print it out and whatever. But we have to negotiate between the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury, and we end up issuing bonds and all that stuff. Anyway, at the end of the day, every time we issue money, we end up more in debt, and it sounds sort of like this, YouTube-ish kind of conspiracy theory talk about the Fed, but it's a reality. It's like something where the people in charge have sort of tried to create, or try to reframe the truth as myth, but in reality, The Federal Reserve Bank, being a private bank, is scamming the United States into perpetual debt to this entity, this banking entity that we don't really need. We could figure our own currency out. And yeah, it would be a little less malleable the way that the Fed can just print money whenever they want, and then we just honor it because we all know there's nothing backing the stuff. We just know that we can still buy some beer. We can go to Publix. We'll still take it. When it gets to the point where Publix can't use their dollars to buy stuff anymore from other countries, or the suppliers that supply Publix can't do that, or whatever wholesaler in the supply chain. If the dollar collapses, then it becomes much more difficult for us to purchase anything from outside the United States. So remember what has happened to manufacturing in America, what has happened even to food production in the United States. A lot of our agriculture now is dedicated to just whatever gives the subsidies, and then you get the subsidies from whoever pays the most to the politicians. So it's not necessarily that we have a good, strong, healthy economy and uh, or economic framework. These kinds of things. So I don't know. Scary stuff. What do you guys think? Superfan Chris is on. What's up on the live chat? By the way, for the other folks that are on live chat on YouTube, you can Skype zhagg at hotmail.com. Its link should be in the description. So if you wanted to just talk, you don't have to be on video. I can just stream your audio only. That is fine too. So anyway, that it was interesting that I guess this report came out earlier this year, maybe Marchish. It was on 60 Minutes, and it's something that's been known for a while. And of course, it was brought to attention through a whistleblower. And now, of course, this whistleblower is living in fear. It's Russian high dignitaries that laundered 20 million a day don't like this guy. So, um, you know, it's just you think about that, right? Now he's on 60 Minutes, and they know he's strolling the English countryside, so they'll probably send half of Russia over to the English countryside, find this guy. I don't know. Maybe vengeance isn't worth it. And just let this thing slide because the people were sloppy anyway. Those heads should really roll. I mean, if you can make shell companies that are more um, convincing, you know what I mean? So it's just like don't be lazy. Just try a little bit, or like even like invest in your cousin's detail shop. You know what I mean? Like or whatever. I mean, like you could go get a semi legit business as a front, launder it through there. At least spring. It like I mean, come on. You're pushing 20 million a day. I'm sure you could take a couple million and make yourself a decent front so you don't get caught like this. This is like the way that it was described. There's like 15 different shell companies, fake companies, all laundering money, and they all use the same address. I'm like, come on, dude. Come on, find some new addresses. That looks fishy. You're all in one branch, all separate customers, different client. I mean, excuse me, different companies, all sharing the same address, same owners. They're all dormant. It's like that's the thing is, I'm not here. Here I am, a layman in the world of money laundering, and I'm like, I know like you can watch the freaking episode of Ozarks and know how to money launder better than these yahoos, and they're laundering 20 mil a day, and it's rampant across. I mean, the dude just happens to pull up 16, 15, all 16 were false, were fake accounts, 15 of which had the same address out of the 16. So there might be more with the same address. I mean, there's hundreds of companies that this branch of Danske Bank worked with in Estonia. Crazy stuff. What do you guys think? Sorry. It's a good mic. I don't want you guys to have to hear me drinking. So Superfan Chris says, are whistleblowers actually ever really protected? I mean, look, I mean, to some degree, I guess Assange was protected, sorta. I mean, they're sort of trapped, though. I mean, protected. So if like, if you're in prison, you're sort of protected. You know what I mean? So it's like it's this weird sort of irony, catch 22 ish kind of thing. Yeah, like Ed Snowden is quote unquote protected in Russia and held and allowed there against, because I guess there's no extradition stuff or whatever. But I mean, I guess Russia at any time could force him out. He's only one man and he has no army. So what's he gonna do? So I think it's sort of still an affront to the U.S. In a way, symbolically. Which I mean, look, I'm generally for whistleblowers, and because that means something's wrong, and I don't know. I just like I think we're at a point where whistleblowers no, I don't think they really are in any real sense protected unless they somehow have massive media hype or something like that. But your average whistleblower, they might get off before anyone even sees them on 60 Minutes. You know what I mean? So people have accidents. People, they just, who knows? Cars come out of nowhere, and the next thing you know, bam, this guy that was going to do an interview is gone. Superfan Chris says he remembers in the Navy a young lady complained to the higher chain of command in regards to favoritism at the office. She did it confidentially, etc. She had no idea the higher ups were also. Ooh, there's some more coming here. But yeah, if you here's the thing that it's this like sort of idyllic fantasy that they push. They want you to be the whistleblower because they. Excuse me. Let's back up. They put in whistleblower stuff like these procedures, and they act like there's official stuff because they want to funnel everything through some channels, and so you can identify the squeaky wheels, then they get rid of these squeaky wheels. They aren't playing ball. Everyone else is playing the game. You either play along, excuse me, or or you're out. It's not about. There is no. Excuse me. Once you have a culture of this type of, I guess, I mean, you could call it incompetence or maybe malfeasance. I don't know. I don't know. Once you have that culture in place, now it's like the thin blue line. Once the culture's in place, anything that you do to question the culture, now you're questioning the ideology and da da da. Yeah, Superfan Chris says they were in cahoots with the foolishness. Aha, they were playing ball. Next thing you know, she was cast off and humiliated. There you go. Yeah. So retribution, retaliation, all of these things come along with whistleblowing. So society says this thing about do the right thing, blah blah blah, and then at the end of the day, what is the pervasive culture? Right. It's to be that we see anyway. It's to be selfish enough to see a bigger cause. But it's not a universal. I am not convinced that people like, for instance, and I'm not just saying this because go ahead, test me. I dare you to test me. I am not someone who succumbs to that kind of thing. Like I'm not, if I'm supposed to do a thing, then, we agree upon compensation or whatever. I'm not going to weasel the position into doing something shady to, or the arrangement or whatever in order to enrich myself or do some crazy crap like that. So that's not, I don't know. That's just not something uh, that I would do. So since it's not something I would naturally do, then that means to me that there's other people who are like that. You know what I mean? I'm sure that I'm not the only one who feels like, look, if that I don't know, this just doesn't have an urge to lie, cheat, and steal. to benefit themselves, and actually has a stronger sense, like a self. Okay, so on a scale between selfishness and altruism, to either sacrifice others for myself to be the cannibal, right? Versus to sacrifice myself for others to be the martyr, on both extremes, cannibal, martyr, right? On those, and I think somewhere along the lines, we are, we fall on that, and it could change through our lives. It might change through the day with some people. I don't know. There's crazy people out there. I think crazy would be defined as going from extremes from one to the other, right? When I say martyr, I don't mean like martyr syndrome where you complain about, oh, woe is me, look at what I've done, blah blah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like literally they give up their own food to give to kids that are hungry, or they'll walk the street and give away their dinner or all the money they have or something, like that's like super crazy martyrdom type stuff. That and not for a ulterior motive, right? So some people might say, oh well, this person is doing that to get their own gratification back, you know and I'm not talking about that per se, other than to say, even if that's the case, if their own satisfaction was fed by altruistic action, I, that's fine. I get self-satisfaction when I am thirsty and I drink water, you know what I mean? Like I feel really a lot better. You know what I mean? Like I feel an urge when I'm thirsty to find water. It's like if someone has an urge to help others, and then by helping others they complete that urge, then yeah, for sure. And I honestly, and that sounds weird for me to say that in contemporary, like nowadays America, because I believe now we talk this yin yang talk about how we're like, oh, we should be brothers and sisters, and we should be, it's a community, and all these things that Elmo taught us on Sesame Street, and all of these nice things, right? And then it's like, okay, well, you're an adult now. That's thrown out the window. Now the malignant narcissist is your role model. And you can say, now here's the thing, the worst part, this is the I don't know if it's the worst part, but this is another, to add insult to injury, right? People will, when they justify their narcissism and their selfishness, they place it onto their family. Well, I'm doing this shadiness, and I'm trying to do this one-upsman stuff, and I'm just watching out for my family. So it's because of the family that I did this. It's not because of whatever. So, I just got to do what I got to do because who else is going to do it? No one's looking out for me. And that's true, right? Because that's America. This is America. And that's why we are doing so terribly with COVID. Not only do we have no leadership from anywhere, I don't hear anybody saying anything really substantively unifying or inspiring. There's a lot of this bickering and weird shit going on, or silence, or bumbling Biden. I mean, we already have a sociopath. Talk about malignant narcissism. We have the reflection of the fools that Plato warned us about. I think it was Plato warned us about with democracy, and it's happening now. But then we have the puppets, or excuse me, the puppet masters of the Ouija board players. And if you are new to the show, I refer to the Ouija board players as the people who are in control. You can call them the deep state. You can call them George Soros. You can call them the Koch brothers, or one of, the Koch brother, or now the other one, whatever. Maybe he probably has a foundation or some crap. Anybody, I don't care. Name the person. I don't care. Who is it? The Clintons, Epstein, someone, the Vatican, all these people. Sure, whatever. Throw them onto the pile. I don't know. I don't have evidence that anyone is or isn't doing shenanigans against humanity. Could be Bill Gates, right? Throw his in the hand. They're all playing Ouija board, and none of them are going to say that they're moving the. There's a word for that. Um, Dang it! I remembered. Okay, it'll come back to me. There's a specific planchet. The planchet. No one's going to admit to moving the planchet. So that's the thing. All right, so in cahoots, Superfan Chris said that they were in cahoots with foolishness. So they're playing the game. This person did not want to play the game, got humiliated. Or an instance where two guys go and blow a whistle on a corrupt businessman confidentially and then end up losing out on their job because the owner/investor sided with the corrupt businessman. Yeah, these kinds of things. Well, I mean, in that case, there there's a level of sort of, I don't want to say stupidity, maybe ignorance, lack of strategery. You know what I mean? In a For someone to blow a whistle on the corrupt businessman and then have the investor go along with the corrupt businessman. What? Only to get burned by the corrupt businessman that the other people tried to warn him about. So that is like, what do you call that? Poetic justice in a way, I suppose. I don't know. All right, Lauren Labrie, welcome to the show. She has said, or just call it money and power. Indeed, money and power. Or now we say money is speech, free speech, per the Citizens United amendment. So corporations can give whatever they want. They're people too, after all, right? Lauren says it's just money and power. The names change. Well, sure, but whose money, whose power, right? There's a lot of people with money, a lot of people with power. Who exactly, right? Is it the Rothschilds, or is it the Federal Reserve, the board, or is it? I mean, I think a lot of Americans believe by this point that the politicians are just like this front. I think maybe they're doing stuff. I mean, they're part of the manipulation of the public. Don't get me wrong, but it's I don't think that they are really so much calling the shots. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they are to some degree, but these other people who are funding them really, I think, are steering them. That's my take on it. All right, Charles Minnick, welcome to the show. What are we talking about? Well, we're starting a conversation with whistleblowers. I also just there was what else was there? Oh, I just saw the Axios interview with Trump. That's crazy. Honestly, I've been sort of out of the loop lately. I've had a lot of projects going on, and my computer that I normally sort of watch whatever news feeds or different things, or get my emails on. Um, Totally crapped out, just randomly crapped out on me earlier this week. Or no, last week, excuse me, sort of midweek. And it's sort of left me in the dark a little bit about whatever's going on. And it's sort of refreshing ish. But because I don't, because here I'm at a point now where I feel like I really can't change or affect a lot of things. And even like, so here in the description, I talk about whistleblowers. Is it even worth it? Because these guys are, what I said, whistleblowers put their lives on the line for values and principles beyond their own best interest, right, or their best interest. Is it worth it? Because they could just sit their ass down and say nothing and keep their job and everything's fine, and nobody gives a shit about, no one cares about them. And now you don't have the Russians going up and down the countryside looking for your ass. You know what I mean? You could just be just a quiet little mouse like everyone else and be fine, right? So here we have whistleblowers that must be motivated by a principle that's bigger than themselves, and that they aren't willing to. I mean, in some cases, I mean, I don't know about this dude right now, but as far as the Danske Bank whistleblower, they may have family, excuse me, that they might not be able to see. They might, who knows, they have to go live in Russia or get kicked out of the Ecuadorian embassy, or live in an embassy. You can't go outside. You can't like go to the club. You can't, you're living in a freaking embassy. You're trapped in an embassy for exposing the corruption that's happening throughout world governments, and exposing all sorts of other stuff. So I don't know. Lauren Labrie says, I don't think it's a static person slash group. I don't think so either. That's why I say, look, throw whoever you want on the Ouija board. And they don't always sit there forever. It's people at any given time with a certain amount of money. A mental exercise that I've done before, or that I like to have people go through, is to think, how much does it cost? How much would it cost in real dollars? Come up with the actual, that's the challenge. Come up with the actual dollar number. How much would it cost to like have someone either threatened or actually carry out like a disappearance, etc. To hire somebody? How much do you think it would cost? You know what I mean? In real dollar numbers is the thing. You have to come up with that in real dollar numbers. And you guys also have to think about, we are on the precipice of a depression. We have massive eviction crisis looming. We have a culture in the United States of individualism versus society, in this Ayn Randian utopian, really a dystopia, but utopia in her. I mean, she wrote the book, The Virtue of Selfishness, the virtues of selfishness. So in her, like, of course, in that idealistic sense, then yes, that this would be a utopia in some ways. I mean, it's not 100%. We don't have a completely 100% yet. Pretty close. Impotent government. It's getting close, but it's not completely dead yet. But it's on its way. The American culture is so individualistic that, I mean, I think there's a lot of people in our country that would just as soon watch other members of their country die on the street if they couldn't afford a job, or to get a job, or whatever. They would shut down any government assistance programs and be fine with that. And if the church didn't take them in, or they didn't have friends and family and they just died, then yeah, we'll pay the police, because that's the only government entity that they are okay with, or the military. We'll pay the police and military to clean up the bodies, and eventually the world will right itself, because it'll seek equilibrium as they die off. Right? There's a segment of our society that basically, I mean, with very little hyperbole, they believe that. So we're in a situation where you could whistleblow and no one would give a shit, because they're all in on the game too. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to think about, like, man, it's a good thing I live in America. I don't have to bribe the police. I don't have to do this and that. I don't have to do weird, deal with the corruption and all the crappiness of these other countries. And here it is coming. I don't know if it's something that we brought, the United States brought, as colonialization and banana republics were created in the name of capital through the hand of the CIA. It is this all coming back like the ripples after you throw a rock in a pond. The ripples go out, but then the ripples come back after they hit the shore. Sometimes there's a reverberation. Depends. But like, it's better like in a pool, or how about in your toilet? That's the best one right there. Drop a pebble in there, you'll get that reflection back, nearly equal intensity, or even more sometimes. a little squirt of water that comes right up, right? So that's what I'm talking about. You have that reaction or the action and then reaction. Um, so I don't know. You tell me what you guys think. Um, it's the thing about whistleblowing. I think it all comes back. It all goes back to and rests on the selfishness of our society. I feel like there's been such a degradation, and it's because we have embraced the idea that everything is for sale. We've embraced that libertarian-ish idea, the Ayn Rand selfishness idea, the Margaret Thatcher, there is no society, only individuals idea has now embraced. We've heralded that. Reagan brought it in, and America ate it up, a big chunk of it anyway. The net result, the net, meaning that it doesn't matter if there's like 10,000 hippies, the 2 million, or not, I mean, I'm just throwing in numbers, the relative numbers, right? The millions of non hippies went the other way, right? And for whatever purpose. There's a book called A Generation of Sociopaths. And it talks about the boomer generation, a generation whose parents went through so much trauma they wanted to ensure that their kids didn't have that, right? But they had trauma. The greatest generation had trauma that they passed on to their kids. So the boomers didn't 100% have it great. They had traumatized parents, right? But in that trauma, part of that was to provide these kids, this new generation, the capacity and all of the things that would help make sure that the wars and all of the struggles that were fought were worth it for the next generation, because the sacrifice, the martyrdom had been done already. And here the boomers have it, right? They have state-funded school. They have a minimum wage that works decently. They have a manufacturing base and on all sorts of things that were set up for them after the war, right? Either by accident or by purpose. Either way, we have a war and everything's set up, right? We have massive prosperity that they get to be part of, right? They get to witness and be part of that, right? And then they grow up, and in their mind, I don't know if it's because it's like the kid, it's like when a kid falls out of a tree or something. Let's say you got kids all playing, and then someone's mom runs out, or some neighbor or somebody, and is fawning over this kid like, "Oh, are you okay? Are you okay?" And the kid's like, "Oh my God, my head." And then some other kid, some asshole, is like, "Oh, it ain't that bad. He should shut up. I fell out of taller trees and da ba da ba da." Right? Those are the boomers, right? So they could give a shit less. They've already got what they needed, right? And now that they saw the ladder, or excuse me, they climbed the ladder. They thought that climbing the ladder was the hard work, and they said, "You know what? I did the hard work. I'm taking this ladder." And now there's no ladder for their kids, and they're like, "Well, I had to figure it out." And it's like, wait a minute, you didn't, we just fell out of a tree. And you did nothing to make sure that we wouldn't fall out of a tree. And now, housing is beyond the means of a lot of people, and let alone anything else that goes along with trying to stay alive on this planet, right? And you can't just go live off the land and say, "Fuck it, I'm tired of this shit. I'm not gonna go and apply for a job where 1,000 other people are applying. I have less than a thousandth of a chance of getting successful results of this activity." If I was a business person, would I ever take those odds? If I was on Shark Tank, would Mark Cuban ever take the odds that I'm a 1 in 1,000 chance of getting successful? Yet we expect an American laborer to put his and her time. It takes like 30 minutes to an hour per stupid application. You got to redo your fucking resume every goddamn time in a different format, in a different way, answer other weird assessments and tests, and then go through interviews. You know, you have your phone interviews, and then you have your fucking in-person interview, and then you have your director interview, and da da da. Other shit depends on the quality, or excuse me, the caliber of job you're in, right? So and even if you're in it, if the higher the caliber, who knows, the higher the number of applicants. And here you are still spending your time, which means shit to them. They don't care. These companies give a fuck about how long it takes for their application process. The longer the better. Weed them out. Weed them out. Meanwhile, you have less than a one in, you know, have a 1% chance. If there's 100 people, think about how stupid that is. Think about the reality if we have 30 million plus people unemployed. How many help wanted and all those? Yeah, sure, there's people hiring. How many of those 30 million are out there trying? How many other people are you putting your name in with? And what are your chances? What are statistically your chances of success? Would a business person take those odds? Would the owner of the establishment of the place that you're trying to go and help them make money on your labor, on your back, would they take those odds? Yet it's expected. They would not actually do it. They would never do it. Yet it is an expectation that you, the laborer, take those odds. You see what I mean? There's shit creek, and we're up it, no paddle, and there's somehow, some way, they're able to tilt the creek even more when they want, right? And that's where we are. So whoever they are, I don't know who they are, and I think they keep very hidden, because if they were revealed, someone would pull Project Mayhem on their ass, or worse, right, with guns. I don't know if Project Mayhem had guns. I can't remember. I have a feeling they didn't. But I think they did. I think they did at some point at the end. They used guns. I'm pretty sure they did. I can't remember. What do you guys think? I've been ranting and raving. What's up? 3 people watching. 3 out of the billions of people on this planet. You're here in this discussion, trying to get through the bullshit. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the matter? And I agree, Lauren. I don't know if it is necessarily static, but there are a lot of things at play, and I think there are fewer people really pulling the strings, I think, than most of us realize. Because here's the thing: if you have more money than anyone in power and influence, then you can fathom. So whatever you're fathoming now is not enough. If that's the case, you know and see everything that's happening. So then you can work your network, your influences. You can work your influences to meet your ends, where you're trying to be, or what you're trying to accomplish. So really, at the end of the day, you just have, if you're the most important or most powerful, excuse me. Wait, am I still getting sound? All right. I think I might have 2 mics going. I don't know. Sorry. Technical issues. But anyway, what do you guys think of what's happening? I don't know. If there was a whistleblower in the Trump administration, what would happen now? Right? We're at a point where lying is a norm. So who do you believe ever? You know, there's you could call it epistemological crisis, right? What are we able to know? Excuse me. What are we able to know? What's real? What's not? I think we're at a point where we can't even really discuss things, because people don't agree as to what material, actual, functional reality is. And somehow, some way, people have completely different perceptions of the same reality. And I think that's something really dangerous and scary, and it may come to a head at some point. I don't know exactly what that is, but when that is. But I think one of the indicators of when the coming to a head or whatever is going to happen is when there is a defined delineation between, or maybe either a revolution's going to start, some rebel group is going to create a revolution, probably a socialist revolution, I'm guessing, right? That's going to happen, and then you're either with the revolution or you're not, and then bam, either revolution gets squashed or there's a civil war, or there's some kind of political line drawn somehow, some way, defined by an ideology. Either we are this or aren't that, and people are willing to die for this or that thing. Now, some people out there are talking about, well, it's going to maybe liberal and conservative, but it's like, I don't know. Sometimes I think there's a lot of baggage that comes with those words, and there's a lot of people breaking, like people, like especially conservatives, don't realize that the quote unquote left and what a liberal is starting to become, especially with the younger generation, is starting to become a very specific thing. This liberal mindset is like the Hillary Clinton, Obama type of mindset, and there's a very large contingent of actual like leftists. These people like Clinton and these people, they are basically, they're neoliberal right wing people that are okay with gay people, right? That's what's happening, and there is, like I said, especially within the younger generations, there's a larger and larger contingent of people that see through that shit, through the veil of um, a lot of focus on identity politics, which is needed. The identity, excuse me, not needed per se, the politics part, but equality under the law, those kinds of things, equal protections, blah blah, whatever. I mean, if people are getting discriminated against, they shouldn't be discriminated against, and things like that. Like, you shouldn't lose your job because you're gay, right? Or someone finds out you're trans or something, and if it doesn't affect your job, it shouldn't be an issue. And if everything was fine up until the point where that was discovered, then that means that there's an issue specific, right? I would imagine. Now, of course, there's, if you can document it or there's performance things, I don't know. Let's talk. But at the same time, um, yeah, equal protections. But that was the sort of ruse, the little handkerchief that they waved in front of the baby so that they could end up doing some, give the baby a shot in the arm, right? Or microchip or something. I don't know, right? Lauren says, let me see. It'll send us back to a time like the Middle Ages. I mean, yeah, in a weird way, it's gonna be it's gonna be a high tech Middle Ages. Like, there's gonna be a lot of dumb people with technology. I don't know how to. I don't know. Unless we change things, because people aren't like inherently dumb. It's just that they're not exposed to things like the concept of critical thought, right? There's people, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or exaggerate. I'm talking about people that I deal with that pop out of college or just are part of our society that don't give simple things very critical thought. You could think one or two steps in, they'll say something and you think just one step past what they just said as a logical conclusion, and you start running into problems, and it's like you didn't think one step into the future of what you just proposed. And they're like, no, or you didn't question this thing that Trump said, or you didn't question this thing that Biden said. Like, oh, it just said that's just what the Democrats say, or that's just Trump being Trump. He's just telling it as it is. It's like, what? I don't know. But yeah, we are at a point where I don't know. I mean, I feel like okay, yeah, maybe to the middle, and I don't know where our renaissance is going to be. right? We are in this, a lot of people have referred to this period as a post-truth era for years now, maybe 5, 10 years now. Post-truth era. Um, there's another name for it. Anyway, I can't remember. There's, yeah, basically post-truth. So we don't know. Send us back to, yeah, the new Dark Ages, excuse me. That's what it was. Lauren says, when superstition and faith ruled. Yeah, I mean, right now it's pseudoscience, which is sort of like superstition, faith. I mean, most of us are so removed from primary research, meaning like how to actually conduct the actual research studies, right? Or how to replicate a research study, how to peer review a study. What does that mean? Those kinds of things. Those simple concepts are not being, either they're not being taught or they're not being solidified in the minds of Americans, because I'm just talking to people that just don't have any clue at all about any kind of like how science works, scientific process at all. Like there's, or even, yeah, of course science is susceptible to corruption. To be able to have critical thought enough to look at the study and see, is this shenanigans that's bought by, is this Coca-Cola funded research study that says soda does not cause, does not add to obesity? Is that something we should trust? Or, maybe you should be a little bit extra skeptical. I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? Right? But there's, to some degree, unless someone tells them, it just becomes like, what can I find on the internet and just fill my bag of facts, right? It's like we teach kids how to remember stuff, but we don't teach them how to think about what they got. It's like they got a big bag of tools, but they don't know how to use the tools, right? I've got them, like in the shop studio, there's literally thousands of tools. They would be useless if I didn't know how to. The reason I have the tools is because I know how to use the tools. Otherwise, I probably would have sold the tool, or I don't know, I wouldn't have it because I wouldn't know of its existence, and or what, you know what I mean? Like I don't even know how to say it. But anyway, it's what we're doing to the kids, and I don't know how. I don't have kids. I don't go to school board meetings, and maybe I should just go to school board meetings because their kids are growing up and affecting me. Right? If I'm looking at this because look, I have to find a selfish explanation as to why I should give a shit, right? Did you hear me just justify with my own with a self-centered excuse as to why I should give a shit about other people's kids? Because I can't just say, because it doesn't make sense in our society for me to just say, you know what, it's an affront to our children as a nation to just teach them to remember a bunch of shit and have them have no semblance of knowledge of how to use all that stuff, these little tidbits of factoids that they have floating around in their head. That's just what I found. I could be totally wrong, but I keep running into it, and I wish I wouldn't. I wish I would run into more, especially young people. But I mean, it doesn't matter. It can be anywhere from boomer to zoomer. These people just do not critically think. They regurgitate random just words without knowing the meaning, and it's like, let's just have a conversation. You don't have to do that, right? But we have I don't know where I guess I don't know, maybe I'm privileged and blessed to have had an education in the Department of Defense school system, government school system, right? I have the realization now, even though throughout my whole life, even from my own father, who worked his entire life, except for maybe brief stints. Actually, no, his entire life, I'm pretty sure his entire life he worked for the government, right? Either via military or the FAA, which I believe is a government entity. And if it's not, it works damn close with the government, so it might as well be a government entity. And all he did all the whole time is talk shit on the government. I'm like, you're part of the government, dude. And these teachers that I had were government teachers. They've been at their jobs forever, right? In order for, especially my high school teachers, it was in Japan. These people had to have tenure to be in the Far East, to be able to live on base in Japan. That was a big deal, or even off base and have a cost of living allowance cover it. That's a big deal. A lot of people want that. So people, once they got there, they were there for a long time. These are the supposed Miss Krabapples. These are the people that just, they're on it. They got tenure. They're going to roll out to retirement. There are people that could have retired decades ago. They're still teaching because they love it, intrinsically love it, right? I had the privilege and was fortunate, the blessing to be around. Now, there's a couple duds here and there, don't get me wrong, but there was so many of these teachers who just wanted these kids to know how much shit there was to know. And even if I didn't pick up everything, what I did, I got exposed to the amount, I mean, just a fraction of the amount of knowledge that was possible for someone to learn about in the world. And it was just dumped all over, right? And yeah, I was able to pick up some of it, but coming out of that, I'm able to see there's so much to know. And I just lament that I feel like there's so many people have zero curiosity or have zero exposure to the potential of what there is. And here we have the internet now. And back then I didn't even have the internet. I just had really good teachers, and I think I probably squandered it. But, now I'm trying to reflect and think, like, I don't know. What their biggest gift was to teach me how to learn and to teach myself as well, right? Going through college even and stuff. I wish I knew how to accomplish completing stuff like college and it was more academic. I just hate homework. I can't do that shit. I just fail all my classes. I'll take all the tests. I'll read the book. I just can't do the shit. I can't do projects. I can't do reports. Fucking have no discipline. All right. Anyway, let's see what's going on. And Lauren says the political spectrum is a circle. I don't know if it's a circle, to be honest with you. I don't think so. I think there is something called horseshoe theory, which I don't agree with either. I think the political spectrum is, a lot of it's manufactured by who defines what it is. What is this political spectrum? And a lot of times, like for instance, in a conservative's mind, the liberal view is probably something spawned of a caricature, right? Like it's like the long-haired hippie professor who's trying to teach your kids Karl Marx, or it's the blue-haired, nose ring, gender neutral, gender amorphous person who is the epitome of libtard to them, or Zoomer lib, or whatever. You know what I mean? So, or on the conversely, the liberal or leftist even caricature of a right-wing person is racist, is closed-minded, probably religious to some degree, or at least pretends they are. These kinds of things. Anti-science, anti-intellectualism, anti-academia, those assumptions. And it may be true, may not, I don't know, right? But there's caricatures that I think there's like, and I mentioned earlier in the show, there's baggage tied to conservative and liberal. So if we were looking at it purely from the as far as, I mean, maybe not politics, I guess, maybe politics, but politics is again I think a lot of politics is what's fabricated to manipulate the public, right? What are we going to win support here or there on a made up argument? So they give sort of gates, like a little game board for you to have a conversation in. I was just watching West Wing. I can't stand the West Wing. I'll tell you, my girlfriend is on this West Wing binge. I can't stand it. She'll watch like 3-4 5 episodes in a row. And I can't, just the dialogue, I hate it. I hate there's all sorts of little things I don't like about it. But one thing I saw, there's President Bartlett was arguing with one of this economics guy, Asian dude from Japan, I think, and he was like a super conservative, and they were jabbing each other about these supposedly opposing political theories, one about government, and then one about private enterprise, and there was like this duality between government and private enterprise, and that's the false dichotomy. That's the game board that they want this conversation to be in, right? And so political conversations and political issues happen within this game board. It's like, it's privatization versus government, right? Public versus private, and it's really, that's not the real heart of the issue at all. One of the main super root cores of the issue is the culture that human beings, our brothers and sisters, human beings, right, are commodities to be rented by each other. And that our American dream is basically to exit exploitation by becoming the exploiter ourselves. How do I stop being an employee and become the employer? How do I stop working for someone on, laboring my labor for someone else's profit? And how do I switch that up and make someone else work for my profit? And we're like, yeah, whoa, yeah, hello, entrepreneur. Okay, that's like saying, okay, well, eventually I'll buy my way out of slavery, and then hopefully I'll be able to buy someone else into slavery, right? If that were the conversation, would that be cool, right? That would be sort of silly, right? But yet that's an when we say, I don't want to be rented anymore, so now I'm going to become the renter, right? I'm going to rent people instead of being rented, right? It's, the conversation doesn't sound the same. It doesn't have the same ring to it, right? And that's the exact, again, the game board that's been set up. The way that the conversation even rolls is, in a way, politics is based on that. But in reality, well, not reality, let's back up. At its core definition, right, left versus right, if we go back to the creation of those terms, right, go back to the French Revolution, those who supported the monarchy were on the right. Well, I don't know what you guys see. This would be my right, but I don't know. Every half the time I see YouTube, it's like reverse, so I don't know. And in my view of it, it's reverse. Whatever, regardless, look, on the right hand side, that meant you were in favor of the monarchy, that you wanted to uphold the monarchy. You did not want to create a whole new system, right? The left, the progressives, or the liberals, the leftists, the people on the left hand of the king wanted to tear down the monarchy and actually bring in capitalism, or it sort of started out as mercantilism. Well, they had mercantilism going on, but basically capitalism, bringing down the feudal hierarchy of lords and the ownership and culture therein, right? There was culture, the associated culture, and how things worked, and what did a king mean, or whether or not a king meant anything anymore. Do we need a king at all? Completely changing the dynamic of society, right? Those people were on the left. So right wing and left wing, in that sense, I mean, in politics it could be a little different, because remember, politics, they manipulate the game board, but if we're looking at macro society historically, right wing is going to be, by that definition of right, when we coin the phrase, right is going to conserve what exists, the paradigm now, the status quo. Left is choosing the new paradigm. They don't want the king anymore. They want the monarchy gone, right? So it ends up not being a circle, because the right wants to maintain the paradigm and the left wants to switch the paradigm, right? So something's going to change. if it ends up being that way. Excuse me, or if something were to go in the leftist direction, if things remain in the, go in the conservative direction, it'll either stay the same or go backwards to what existed prior, right? And we can see that in pretty much all conservative positions. They are either an upholding and a resistance to change, or it is something that reverses the clock legislatively to another time, right? And I don't know that there is a piece of legislation that isn't characterized that way on the conservative side, right? Now, that being said, that should give you context for why a lot of the young people are looking at liberals as like, yeah, you're not really leftist. You're not trying to change a paradigm. You're not looking at wage or excuse me, capital and labor relations. You're not looking at those things. You're not fundamentally trying to change society. So people like Obama, the Clintons, Biden, this wing of society, even politics or whatever, they really are right-wing conservatives. They are conserving the status quo. And if they move left a little bit, it's in service to the status quo, right? Even Obamacare. Obamacare was really a windfall gift, a blessing, a trough, buffet trough to private industry or to private insurance companies, right? So there was no fundamental change. Now, if someone, even Bernie Sanders talking about Medicare for all, that's barely a little toss, like a little nudge over to not even changing a paradigm. It's just adding things that in other quote unquote civilized parts of the world, developed quote unquote parts of the world, these are just sort of societal norms. In America, in the land of the individual and not society, we don't believe in that type of thing. It doesn't seem, anyway, at least not in practice. All right, so Lauren has dropped us some knowledge. Let's see what she's saying. Okay. She says she's finishing her master's in education next month. Excellent, and has spent the last few months learning how to read research. Awesome. That is good. Hopefully, you'll be teaching a lot of people about that stuff. And though I value critical thinking, scientific method, logical reasoning very highly, and have worked how to learn how to think, and this was totally new to me. I went to private school and one of the best high schools in the nation and have a bachelor's of science. Yeah, I never learned any of this. Everything you said is correct, but if you go too far left, you are right, vice versa. Not really. I don't believe that's the case. If you go too far left, it depends on what you mean, define left, right? It depends on what that means. Again, left has baggage that has been created by Fox News or whoever's promulgating the, Breitbart, Ben Shapiro, whoever creates these memes of what leftists believe or whatever, right? That is like, I guess you could say, well, you go far enough left, you get Stalin, like not, or something like that. And like, not really. Because that if you look at it, I mean, I don't know how deep academically, or if that's how you would even call it. I don't know. I'm not of academia to that degree, honestly, right? But I'm just seeing it as a layperson looking at it. It's in what I see. Like, for instance, if we say, okay, well, Stalin is the leftist position. Well, taking a leftist position, I would say, no, Stalin is not the leftist position, because a leftist position would be trying to change a worker paradigm between capital and labor. And Stalin really didn't do that. He just simply transitioned the employer-employee designations from private employer to government employer, right? And then the employee still had to labor for the state, for the sake of the state, instead of for the sake of themselves, right? There was no democratic control of what they did with their labor. There was no they had no equity, direct equity in the enterprises that they helped build. They didn't do those kinds of things. Those paradigms weren't weren't done. So these, and that doesn't fit the definition of what a lot of people put into, as far as how they define quote unquote left or right, depending on how far right you go. There are right wingers, extreme right wingers that vouch for an ethno state, right? So if you go far enough left, there's no ethno state. There's no calling for an ethno state. If you go far enough left in the United States, anyway, right? There's no one calling for, a vanguard socialist movement with a socialist party running everything. I don't know. You name me the person who's calling for that, right? There's no this left position doesn't exist, right? So there is no left. So the farthest left that would probably even be envisioned would be something like a paradigm to change the way workers and capital relate to each other, to say that people are partners just like shareholders are partners, right? And that workers are captive in the workplace. There is no alternative to being exploited by someone unless you already have resources. So if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth like Trump, and by the way, let me go back real quick for a second, about private versus public school. So now Lauren mentioned that she went to a great high school, which is awesome, and it was private school. And when I was referring to the government school that I went to as being an amazing school, it wasn't to say that it was superior to private school or anything like that. It's just that there is, in a way, it is a little virtue signal to declare against those who hold the belief that a government entity, government school, would be inferior to what you could get, right? So here we have our municipal schools that I'm running into, the normal American school system that I'm running into, and it's like not functioning properly. And here, or at least I don't think so. Now there's probably gems all over the place, great, but I'm not running into them, right? And they're not interacting with me. And it's not that I am just, look, I'm talking about even through corporate America, where I had no control over who I met, or they had no control over meeting me, right? And so this is random sampling of people. Well, not even random sampling. This is a cream of the crop of people that made it through recruiting in certain circumstances in certain companies that I worked for throughout the years of corporate world time that I've worked, a couple decades of work, right? So it's, anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that it could work. There is a possibility that people can be motivated to intrinsically do an amazing job if you let them do that. And what's happening in the American school system that's not letting that happen, right? And so in a way, I'm pulling the excuse that it's government and government sucks, pulling that rug out from under the feet of those who would say it, right? Is basically what I was getting at. So yes, private school can be amazing, and in fact, it should be amazing. You're paying extra to go there. I think it should surpass almost. They should have some type of degree. Excuse me, not degree. There should be some type of actual quantification of how much better the private school is than public school to evaluate the cost of that private school. And I think that would be great. Go ahead, do it. But at the same time, the public school should work for the public, and it should work. And whoever's not letting it work, generally through administration, right, whatever's happening there is where the problem likely is, right? And that's up to us. And going back to the paradigm, like a leftist paradigm, that I would say, like in this world right now, I'm a far left person, right? Because I'm actually, if I were president, I would propose, I would be running on a platform of changing labor and capital relationships, the relation between capital and labor, that you can't rent people anymore, right? That if you are going to enter into a long-term relationship, like someone works for you for 5 years, 10 years, they should, by default, not by employee stock purchase plan, not by anything like that, because remember, they're captive. They can't just say, you know what, screw your job and every other crappy job that doesn't treat me right, because they know I'm captive, so they all know that I'm, it's like captive, it's like dogs, right? It's like, imagine we're all a bunch of dogs in a pen, and you have shitty dog food A and you have shitty dog food B. How much better does shitty dog food B have to be in order for it to be chosen over A? In reality, think about that. You have captive dogs, there's nowhere else to eat, right? That's where we are captive dogs in this crate of capitalism. There is no escape unless you have a master or some resource or something that can break you out of that crate, right? Now, you can save up or something. Here's where the breakdown happens, right? Maybe you could save up some food from A and B and amass enough food to bribe another dog from another cage to open you up or something, but open it up so you can escape. But in a world where you can't, on wages that exist now, you can't afford rent, you can't afford a house. I mean, you can't afford food, you can't afford a car, or you can't afford to live where you can work, or the place where you can afford to live, the wages don't pay for you to live there. Either way, you can't live where you need to live, right? Or the transportation costs are such that it requires you to have the resource of a vehicle, for instance, and that type of investment. So if you don't have those things, by definition, in our society, you have to enter into exploitation. And if you don't, whatever thing that you could start or do because of efficient markets, right? Because the market is efficient, then anyone else could do that too. So how much money are you going to make when you're competing with everyone else that could do the same exact thing, right? So it's not a reality. You have to enter into exploitation. You have no choice. If there were the commons, let's say, for instance, the other thing I would do if I was running for president, would be to reinstate the commons, where you could put your name into a lottery and say, fuck this shit, I'm going to go live on the land and grow potatoes and fish in the river and live that way. Fuck it. I'm out of here. Right? Okay, put your name in the hat, and we're going to divvy out all this Bureau of Land Management land or something. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this shit out, right? And say, fuck it. I'm leaving the workforce to just live off the land, right? And then in return for that, right, you would work it into some kind of basically a National Guard-ish kind of schedule where you do some kind of government work of your choice. It could be anything, whatever you want. The government needs help doing everything, right? So those things together would create a major paradigm shift in society. That is a super far left position. So there's no right-wing position at all to circle into that. There is nothing at all like that paradigm shift between capital and labor, or this notion of reinstituting commons, to think about the population specifically and not about capital, right? These types of things, and still be able to run a healthy economy that'll actually be more healthy as a nation and as individuals holistically, will be more healthy than it is now, right? That is a super far left position. Whatever, and have you ever heard of that position? If you haven't heard of that position, whatever you have heard is propaganda. I can guarantee you that. I guarantee you it has been propaganda, right? All right, so let's see what else Lauren is saying. So everything you said is correct, but if you go too far, oh yeah, okay, so vice versa. Many dictatorships were started by leftist movement. Well, in what way? Were they guaranteeing, so by a leftist movement you could have something grow under the auspices of of a leftist, quote unquote, leftist movement, right? Um, and so I don't know, which I would like to see the one that created that paradigm, right? Sure, you could say anything that would change, going back to the core definition, anything that changes from the current paradigm to a new paradigm would, in by that raw definition, be leftist, right? So we could have, for instance, this communist utopia where we are all sharing what we have together based on our needs, and we have this crazy utopian thing that doesn't really exist. But let's pretend right now it exists, and then we have this contingent of people that say, no, I don't like this anymore. I think we should have selfishness, and I think we should be able to hoard things and hoard resources just because I want to, because I can. Fuck you. Don't even ask me. I should be able to do whatever the fuck I want. If I want 1,000,000 acres of land and I just want to fucking have it, fuck you. I should be able to have it. Right? Why not? If I want to buy your kids and you're fucking poor, why the fuck not shouldn't I be able to buy your kids? Right? Why not? They're your kids. There's extreme libertarians that believe this, right? Or you could slippery slope them into their free marketism by asking, should it be okay for people to sell their own children? Because we did that in our country. We faced that in our depression, the depression that we had in the 30s, people selling their children in our country. So, when we talk about the relative change, sure, things have changed as far as different political movements in different parts of the world. But when we look at what exists in the contemporary paradigm without, or even if we go back and say, and try to talk about dictatorships started by leftist movements, were they ever true leftist movements? Were they creating egalitarian societies? Or, excuse me, in what context? Going back to the communism thing, if we were in the communist utopia and there was a band of people who wanted to strike that down and wanted to live the Ayn Rand utopia, right? They technically would be leftists in that paradigm, if that makes sense, right? So left and right is really it's something that changes depending on the contemporary culture and what's happening, right? So someone who, like, for instance, we are a free society, people who, well, let me back up. Maybe if we didn't have slavery in the past, then someone who advocated slavery in a free society would be a leftist. But since we had it in the past, it would be someone who would be a far right, someone who, in general, right, since history in general has been constricted, or it's not history itself, it's been a history of control and constriction, right? The monarchy, or prior to that is empire, or prior to that it was some other kind of leader who was an authoritarian, likely an authoritarian leader. There's very few, if any, truly egalitarian or equal type societies, supposedly, that were out there in the world. And so now, in the general sense, anything leftist would really, by definition, be a liberating movement, a movement to create more freedom, because history has been devoid of that freedom, right? Even going through American history, the rights and freedoms have been neglected for groups, and it's been a slow and long process to unwind restrictions. And prior to capitalism and quote-unquote freedom and the destruction of the monarchy, we had the monarchy that constricted what you could or couldn't do, right? And so thus far, leftist movements have been liberating movements. But anyway, so Lauren says, but extreme left is enforcing these ideal conditions and paradigms. Yeah, so I don't know again, I don't really know what ideal conditions and paradigms. Now, you could say that, yes, James, what you're saying about creating people as partners and not as rental laborers, and those kinds of things, that is enforcing an ideal paradigm. But I could also argue that the right wing capitalists are enforcing an idealistic paradigm because the premise of practically their entire argument has been proven false, right? Everything about trickle down economics has been proven false, right? Supply side economics in general has been proven false. So it's this is something where uh, there is a lot of propaganda and there's a lot of false dichotomy and a lot of language that is holdover from after World War II, with with the escalation of tensions with Russia, right through the Cold War with McCarthy, or excuse me, through the with the beginning of the Cold War and McCarthyism, right, and then into the height and towards the end of the Cold War with Reagan, right, and even then going forward, like we jumped off a ramp of propaganda and ideology, right? But that is the normal ideology, right? To the point where it has become such the norm that just I mean, whatever, like talking about, I don't even know what ideal, honestly, to be honest, Lauren, if you could explain that a little bit more. Um, Enforcing ideal conditions, maybe about whether or not people get offended and those kinds of things. Yeah, I don't know about that. That to me, if that's what you're talking about, like cancel culture or people getting triggered and that kind of thing, as far as ideal conditions. I agree with you in that. I think that this is a side effect of the hierarchical nature of our society. The fact that bosses, because their perception is that something happened one way or another that will affect the bottom line or their perception or branding, that they will make a decision that affects other people's lives. And that's okay. That's happening right now. I mean, that's normalized by our society. And I think there's a sense of helplessness and that sort of looms, that because that could happen to you, especially when it's random people that get a, maybe say a stupid joke on Twitter. Next thing you know, they're fired when they land on an airplane or something. Things like that. That kind of crap. Or somebody, there was a writer for like New York Times or some shit. I don't remember who it was. They said that, oh, this person wrote their name on a petition for supporting free speech, and this other person that also supported it, I don't agree with them, and it actually makes me feel unsafe to work with them, right? And the other person got fired. This is a symptom of a hierarchical society that we've created on purpose this way. We've created this. We don't have to work and live this way. We as a species on this earth, this planet, have evolved to be community species, right? We are not individuals alone against the lion. You can't kill the lion alone. You can't, right? And anybody who says they can is standing on the shoulders of ghosts that they have no reverence for, right? Because what are they going to do? Use a knife? Who smelted the steel? Who made that knife? Right? Are you going to be able to make a knife before the bear or the lion comes to kill you? Right? If you're going to craft an obsidian knife, did someone teach you how to do that, or did you pop out of the womb knowing how to craft an obsidian knife, if you even have obsidian around you to do anything with? You see what I mean? They are neglecting the shoulders of the humans before them, the people, the tribe before them that led to the knowledge for their own survival. They cannot kill the lion alone. It's just we are not that species, right? And we have developed a culture and normalized this idea that we aren't that way. We've hidden our own nature. And as far as we try to think that humans are different than animals and that we are transcendent to nature and that we've escaped nature, you still shit, piss, fuck, and stink. So you're a fucking animal, just like any other fucking animal, right? Someone sticks a knife in your gut. Guess what? It looks a lot alike another mammal, right? You're not that different. So you're lucky and blessed to have this cognition and awareness, right? And we as a species have forgotten that. We have been infected as the Cree Indians and other Native American um, tribal folks have talked. I'm not deep into this stuff. I don't really know. I just know of the existence of this concept. The psychospiritual virus known as Wetiko has engulfed our culture, if not the world. It is a cannibalistic psychospiritual virus where people can catch it from each other, and it's cannibalistic. It will feed. It will cause people to look at each other as sustenance, and it will cause people to feed off of each other to enrich themselves. There's an image of the Wetiko spirit, the spirit of Wetiko, and what does it look like? It's a gigantic stomach, a huge stomach, and a tiny little head, and a tiny little, even smaller mouth. And this thing will never be satisfied. The spirit is never. So this never sated, right? Psycho-spiritual virus has taken over, right? And now it sounds all hocus pocus, but I mean it's that's one way to sort of describe what's happening, because that is different than what we have evolved to be, right? And the reason why I believe the reason why this concept even exists is because it's antithetical to the survival of our species. So to be able to express and warn the other people about this, right, is to pick the cancer of society out, or at least stifle it down to where it's not an accepted behavior to act like that. And now we have taken Wetiko and made it the normal culture. We have made it the expectation that you as well have the psycho-spiritual virus. And look, the most successful people in our world, even our president, has this affliction. Look at that. What have you been doing not getting inoculated with it? You're slipping. Get the tiger blood. Get the spirit, right? I think that's where we are, and we're reckoning with that. And worse is to come. Worse is to come. I'm not trying to doom and gloom. I'm not manifesting it. It's not coming. I'm not the one making this happen. I'm just telling you the shit's going to hit the fan worse than it's been. Sorry. It's going to happen. So let's talk about it. As long as the internet still works, as long as we still got power, I'm going to still be doing these shows. And again, it's a show. I say it's a show. It's really not a show. We're talking about stuff. Get people to come on. Get people with opposing views to come on. Let's talk about it. Look, I'll challenge anybody to whatever. Most of what people say, I watch these people with debates and different shit. I see people on the news. I mean, there's people all over doing all sorts of shit. The language that they speak obscures the truth. Bring people on. If you're arguing with people and you don't know how to articulate it, or if you do know how to articulate it and you just want to get them on and whatever, well, I don't care. Whatever it is, whatever floats your boat. Get people to jump on the show so we can talk about this stuff and see some opposing views and see if does someone get flipped one way or another. You know what happens. That's what this is about. Can we see through the bullshit? Because there's a lot of bullshit going on, and I believe that the American people are being manipulated. And I think a lot of the American people recognize that they're being manipulated. But thus is the world, I suppose. But anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I want to thank you guys for joining in. Oh, we have one last comment I forgot to read. Lauren says it was fantastic school. We were featured in USA Today and several other national magazines because we excelled. Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think that you should. If you're going to a private school, it should be an expectation that they excel. And I don't know. It sounds like you, and you have bachelor's, you didn't learn any of these things that you were, supposed to learn how about. So you got failed as well, even in the excellent private school. So there should, again, going back to the paradigm, if we were people as partners paradigm instead of wage slavery paradigm that we're in, it doesn't matter if you are making $1 million a year, salary, whatever. If you're working for someone else and they're making money off of you and keeping, skimming off of you, you're still a wage laborer at the end of the day. Yeah, you're great. You're at the high end of it. But if you're not the owner of the company and you have no stake in it, then you're being rented to. Just you get, hey, primo rent. Super for you, right? So, what was I going to say? Yeah, a whore's a whore, $10 or 10 million, right? You know what I'm saying? You're still doing your shit. Anyway, that paradigm change by guaranteeing equity would mean that 10 years of service, 20 years of service would guarantee that whatever you helped build, the enterprise that you were democratically part of, that you helped guide and steer profits as well, even, right, that you now have equity in, you can cash that out, or you can live off dividend income. Now you can pay more attention to the government. Now you could participate in the government. Now you can spend more time with your kids and spend more time on the school board and those kinds of things, participating in society, which we don't have now because we live in a more and more encroaching, stronger and stronger dystopia of dog eat dog and disregard for our fellow human being. And it's either going to get worse or not. I mean, I don't know, but we need to make a decision as a society, because this is the time to do it. We got a pandemic, a looming depression, eviction crisis, mortgage crisis, major economic depression happening. The stock market's been up for a while. That's called the dead cat bounce. Watch, it's going to hit harder, worse. Whatever you think is bad now, it's going to be much worse. And the numbers are actually worse than what led to the Great Depression. So what does that even mean? I don't even know. There's no such thing as an expert. Sorry. You tell me what you think, because it's almost as good as anyone else, because there's no experts. This has not happened yet in this planet. Like in the history of economics, politics, and shit, what's about to happen has not happened. The blocks, the little Tetris blocks that are forming, have not formed ever in this before. So now we don't know. We're entering into a period of unknown circumstance. So that's why we get together to talk about this shit, and hopefully we can hash something out. All right. So again, thank you all. Seprock Beats. Check him out on what's it called? Bandcamp, Side AB, and hopefully, oh, maybe they won't let me play it because I played it too many times. Possibly. I didn't know you only got a few plays on it. All right, so Bandcamp, don't forget, track or Side AB. This one is track number 1, so they'll let me play that one. There you go, little Seprock Beats. And until next time, I am out of here. Peace out.
mountain is?
Charles,